Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So it's the start of March and it's time to get sowing even more seeds. So I'm going to show you 10 seeds that I'm sowing right now. So we've got quite a few of our seeds already sown. So these spinach seeds we sowed at the start of last month. They've already come on into nice little plants and they're ready to plant up and they're actually ready to go into the final destinations. Now what I'll do with these ones, because I haven't got loads of plants here, I'm going to plant these in the greenhouse so I can get a quick harvest. Because remember the way spinach are, they go for the whole season. These are ideal to be planting into the final destination outside. But we're going to have a bit of a cold snap this next week. So just wait till that cold snap's over, acclimatise them properly and then get them outside. For me, March is pretty much your last chance to sow tomatoes. These are some tomatoes that I planted in January. You can see they're coming on quite nice. Remember, because of lack of space, I always plant quite compact. Now these are getting quite tall and they're getting into quite big plants. It's time to get them separated out. And I like nice deep pots. If anyone likes pot noodles, it's not a plug for pot noodles, but the pot noodle pots are ideal for these types of things. And it's the same with chilies. If you're growing super hots, then it's probably getting quite late to sow your super hots and still get a good harvest in a reasonable amount of time. You'll probably have to bring them in later on in the season to give them that protection so they ripen all the, you get a decent harvest all the way to ripening. We like to sow ours quite in advance, so this is my grow cupboard and you can see all my super hots coming on quite nicely. And I'll do a separate video in the next couple of weeks on how I'm going to take care of these now that I've got them growing. And see quite a lot of red naga coming on quite nicely. I've taken some outside to get a little bit of fresh air and a little bit of direct sunlight. Let's see what seeds we've got here. It's not time for runner beans yet. Towards the end of the month, you could actually sow runner beans under glass if you wanted to. So these are the naga that are just sitting outside at the moment. It's still very cold for them, but it's good to just get them outside, get a little breeze on them. It'll help control pests. It'll just toughen the plants up a little bit as well. So it's nice to just have them outside, but they'll go back inside very shortly. They won't stay here for very long. You've seen me plant my peas in February and in January. Now, one of the tragedies that we had was we were nursing one of our chickens in here. She was getting picked on a little bit. So she came into here and she scratched up some of my peas and you can see that there's patches missing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill in these gaps with a couple of extra seeds. I'm going to keep these in these gutters for a couple more weeks before I plant them out. But it's a good time. I mean, if your soil's dry and it's free draining, you could actually plant peas directly into the ground now. So while we're on the subject of legumes, dwarf French beans are something later on this month that I'm going to sow into little pots and just keep them in the greenhouse. And that'll just give us a jump on the season. But normally in April, I plant all my French beans and all my runner beans directly in the ground. If you wanted to get an advance on the season, you could actually sow them this month in a greenhouse under glass. But just wait for this week to be over because it's going to be quite cold this week. Now this next plant, it might not be the most exciting of seeds, but it's a really important one that I use a lot in the way I garden. See, I'm just using the back of the rake to level out this soil, just so I could have a flat surface to work on. The seed that I'm talking about is radishes, and the reason that I go for them now and I go for them straight in the ground, what they're going to do is they're going to prepare the garden for me in order to grow for the rest of the season. So as you can see, I'm just making a couple of drills with a stick. You don't have to use any fancy drilling machines or any fancy techniques. It's really simple. And just drop your radish into place. Absolutely fine. You could sprinkle them, but sometimes it's easier to do it like this and then you know exactly where they're growing. Now this variety of radish is called French breakfast. It's a really fast maturing radish. I'm not going to sow them all. I've got a few seeds left because I want to sow these a little bit later so we're not getting a glut of radishes. But the reason that I've sown them now, and I've sown them like this, just think about the shape of a radish. It's long and it's thin. Now, French breakfast radish, they're not that long. They grow to about 4 or 5 inches. But what it's going to do, it's going to go into the soil and it's going to break that soil up for me. So when I plant my next plant, the soil's nicely broken up and nicely loose, ready for me to go. And they're fast maturing. They'll harvest, from seed to harvest, you can get to in about 30 to 40 days. So they're really, really good one to grow like this. You will have heard me talk about what I do with radishes in winter, is I plant them in the ground and leave them to rot, and that'll just break your soil up. But these, they're going to act as a way of breaking your soil up, but we're going to get a harvest from them as well, so win-win. So like I showed with the spinach that I've planted already, now just next to those radishes, later on today, I want to just plant those spinaches into a row, just so, and I'm going to also plant lettuces that I've already got going. We've got nice lettuces growing inside, and then they're going to go out here as well. So my onions are coming on nice and strong. I think from seed it's quite late to plant onions, but if you're planting onion bulbs, now's a perfect time. As soon as your ground's workable, get your onion bulbs straight into the ground, and if your ground's frozen solid, get them into some seed cells. I'm not a big fan of sowing onions in seed cells and then planting them out, but if you need to, then it's an option for you. So don't, just because I don't like it, doesn't mean it shouldn't work for you. If you need to do that, do it. It might be too late to plant onions from seed, but it's the perfect time to plant spring onions from seed. And these are onions white Lisbon. They're a really nice, fast maturing plant. And you can plant spring onions all the way through the season and go for quick harvests. So go for successional harvest. So plant a few, harvest a few, plant a few, harvest a few. Just keep them at different stages all the way through. With most plants, do that. So keep successionally sowing them so you can get continuous harvest through the season. So I'm just preparing some more carrot boxes. So I've got one that I've sown in January and that's come on quite nicely. And what I've done with that is I've moved it outside now that the plants are established, because the thing with carrots is they can take a bit of cold, so absolutely fine. So you've seen me sow carrots before. I don't have a fancy method of sowing them. I just sprinkle them on like salt, like you would salt and pepper on your chips. So, and a little dusting of compost over the top. Doesn't need to be too deep. So remember, carrots like moisture and darkness to germinate. So I'm going to give that a bit of a water, and then I'll cover it with some cardboard, and I'll leave it look just like that for about a week or so. But do come back after about a week to 2 weeks and just keep checking it regularly after a week, just in case your plants are germinating. Last thing you want is them to get leggy under that cardboard. So I'm going to start filling some seed trays with compost. You do get the odd weed seed growing in these. Absolutely fine, no problem. You just pull them out. I'm fast running out of space in this greenhouse, so we better get the other greenhouse ready to start growing and move some of these things over there. I mean, I'll have some space in a couple of weeks when I plant all these broad beans directly out into the garden. Once I do that, then I'll have loads of space open up. But right now we are very tight. So this is before I've even planted anything. I'm just going to water the compost. Just help it all settle in, let the water take it in. It's brassica time. Rather than going by individual seeds, I'm going to go by a whole family. So your cauliflowers, your cabbages, your kohlrabis, your mustards, all of them are getting planted right now. Some of the mustards, like your lai and some of the Chinese mustards, they can go straight out into the garden. It's perfectly fine. Some of the other ones that I'm going to get, just because I want to give them an earlier start, a stronger start, I'm going to go into seed cells and then plant them from seed cells into the garden once they've got a little bit established and they're a bit stronger. So we're in the house and it's dark, but it brings me on to my last couple of seeds. And as you guessed it, it's that time. I'm going to open this one up very soon, but in the meantime, I've got some more bottle gourd seeds here that I'm going to start sowing now. So I'm not going to go for massive sowings right now. I'm just going to go for a few at a time. So I'm going to soak these in water. See how the seeds are floating? I'm just going to allow them to take on a good amount of water, let them properly get plumped up. Let's chuck one more in just for good measure. Let them properly get reinvigorated. And once they've done that, you'll see the seeds start to sink. But don't throw away seeds that don't necessarily sink. Some, even though they might float, they'll still germinate. I'm going to leave them like this, let them take on as much water as possible. And then in a couple of days time, I'm going to put them on a damp tissue and I'm going to chip the seeds like normal. Don't worry, I'll do a separate bottle gourd growing video, but I've done loads of bottle gourd growing videos. Have a look at, I'll leave some links on them up here. You can have a look at that and see exactly how I do it. But I'll be cracking this one open very shortly. But talking of cracking seeds open, here's some that I'm going to crack. I am going to crack open. Let me just get a plate so I don't make too much of a mess. Now these are hyacinth beans. So I save these beans, I save these seeds myself from plants that we've grown here. And if you haven't seen hyacinth beans before, they're absolutely beautiful. I mean, the flowers are really pretty, the plant is really nice, but more than that, the beans are absolutely delicious. Yeah, they are really, out of all my beans, these are my favorite. So you can eat the pods, and they're really nice in curries or as bhajis, or you can eat the seeds. You know, if you dry the seeds like this and then eat the dry seeds, absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, we don't get enough beans growing here or in the UK to be able to dry them and have them as dried beans. Let's just make sure there's no seeds left in there. So 3, 6, 10 seeds. Wicked. That's not bad from 3 pods. Now with these, I won't soak them. I mean, I don't like soaking bean seeds. Beans, peas, I don't like soaking them. And generally when I soak them and then I plant them, they turn to mush very easily. So I like to plant these dry. So let's get on it. Let's get planting. Finding fridge magnets in my compost. And I'll sow these straight into the pots. And in these smaller pots, I want to plant 2 per pot. And in these slightly bigger pots, we'll go for 3 per pot. It's time to get the propagator fired up again, because these hyacinth beans, they like a nice warm temperature, so around 20 degrees. So let's get them in the propagator. So come on. Now they're in the propagator, give them a good water. The compost is starting to dry a little bit because it's in the house and it's been here a couple of weeks now. So a good amount of water is quite important. I don't mind there being a little bit of water in the propagator actually, because once I turn the heat on, that's very quickly going to evaporate. But if you've got issues with damp or anything like that, make sure you haven't got excess water hanging about. But I'm going to turn this propagator on because of where this propagator is. It's right near the front door. There's lots of fresh air coming in. There's good air circulation all the time. And I've got space on this side for me to put my plastic tubs on for when I propagate my bottle gourds. I wasn't going to do this right now, but seeing as though we've got the propagator turned on and there's no point wasting heat, let's get some more cucumbers sown. Yeah, so let's get some cucumbers sown. Bismillah. Okay, that's 5 seeds there. And I am going to chip them on a damp tissue, just like I did, like I've shown you before. So just about that much amount of water in there on the damp tissue. That'll soon evaporate and you'll need to keep topping it up. And these are a variety called Market More. So spread them out, get a lid on and into the propagator. See, I didn't want to waste that heat because I'm turning the propagator on. There's no point having that little bit of space in there that's just going to go to waste, so you might as well use it. In about 10 days time, I'll start seeing my little beans popping up and my cucumbers germinating, so I'll be a happy boy. In March, there's so many seeds that you can sow. I've tried to go through some of the ones that I'm growing right now, but yeah, fill your boots on what you're going to grow. There's absolutely loads, and I've tried not to repeat myself. I know I've done a bit of that, but yeah, it can't be avoided sometimes. So I'm going to leave it there for this one. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe for regular updates. If you'd like to support this channel, why not become a patron? I'll see you on the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.